You probably think that the money that's sitting in your bank account or in your wallet is worth something. You believe it's worth something because every time you try to pay for an item you want or need, people accept it from you. You trust money because it seems everyone around you trusts it as well. But what if your money is less trustworthy than you think? And what if your government was using tactics even they say are illegal to artificially give our money value? In short, what if we only trust money because we're all being lied to? In today's video, I'll be sharing some mind-blowing history, how for the last few thousand years, money has always been worth something, but how in our lifetime, for the very first time ever, it seems that money's worth really nothing, maybe even less than nothing, and how this should be concerning for all of us. There is a lot to cover in this video, so I think the best place to start is going through a trip throughout time. Before we do, we have an amazing newsletter that people absolutely rave about. So if you want to know what the buzz is all about, there is a link in the bio. The fall of Rome. Okay, so to understand what's happening in our world today, it is important to look at history. This story starts around 2,200 years ago, during the time of the Roman Empire. In order for its people to trade, the Romans created a coin that was easily recognizable by all its citizens, the denarius. To give people confidence in using this new money, they made the coins from something everybody agreed had value: silver. And because everybody trusted the value of silver, the Roman people could use the coins with confidence. Unfortunately though, the Roman government became greedy, and this led them down a very dangerous path of making their coins less valuable. When the denarius was created, it was very pure. Each coin was made of at least 95% silver, but over time, the coins became much less pure. As the Roman Empire grew, it needed more money to fund its expansions and its wars. So emperors decided to put less silver in each coin in order to be able to make more. By the year 148 AD, the silver content in each coin had dropped to just over 80%. 100 years later, it had dropped to less than 50%. And by the year 265, each coin had just less than 0.5% of silver left. This stripping of the value of a currency is called debasement. And simply put, debasement describes how a currency can be stripped of its value over time. For the Romans, debasement caused hyperinflation of more than 1,000% and a collapse of their entire economy. And this economic collapse eventually caused the fall of the entire Roman Empire, one of the greatest empires our world has ever seen. This can give you a little bit of an idea of what can happen to an empire when its means of trade becomes worthless. Now, obviously, we didn't always use money that was made of precious metals, but even if it wasn't made of something valuable, it was always guaranteed by something valuable. Throughout history, almost all money was made of something people agreed had significant value. Things like gold, silver, copper, or bronze. Eventually though, human beings would start to trade with things that didn't have as much value. Things like cloth money, banknotes, or less valuable coins. For example, around the year 960 AD, small pieces of cloth were used for trade in Europe, but their value was backed by the price of silver, so they could always be exchanged for something of real value. Or the British pound, which at first was backed up by cows. Each pound could be exchanged for 15 cows if the holder chose to do so. Eventually, the pound moved on from cows and was backed by silver and then gold. This linking of money to the price of something valuable, especially gold, is called the gold standard. If your country wanted to have $1 billion of money in circulation, for example, it would have to have at least $1 billion worth of gold in reserve to guarantee that money. This made money something we could all trust. And this is the way that us humans did things for a very, very long time all around the world. But about 100 years ago, things started to change, and they didn't start changing for the better. During World War I and World War II, almost every country on the planet left the gold standard. Just like the Romans, everyone needed to create more money to pay for a massive war. So for a while, they just ignored the gold standard and just printed money like mad. Money that wasn't guaranteed by anything valuable at all. But at the end of World War II, instead of going back to the gold standard, they did something else instead. In 1944, 44 nations came together to sign the Bretton Woods Agreement. The agreement aimed to make it easier for currencies around the world to be exchanged with each other and to promote open global trade. But they needed one currency to become the control currency that all other types of money could be compared against. And because the USA controlled more than half of the world's gold supply at the time, the American dollar became the reserve currency of the world. So as long as the US dollar had this incredible security, basically the whole world had something secure to trade against. Well, unfortunately, this security didn't last for that long.
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. and the American economy is by far the strongest in the world.
That's former US President Richard Nixon, and the words you just heard were from a speech he made in 1971 when he announced that the US dollar would be leaving the gold standard forever. And this is basically the start of all of today's money becoming completely worthless. Today, the US dollar is still considered the reserve currency of the world. And even though Nixon talked about how great it would be to remove the US dollar from the gold standard, it kind of did the opposite. After his decision, the US experienced one of the worst recessions in history. And since that time, not a single currency on our planet has been linked to something valuable like gold, silver, or even cows. The big scam. Okay, so that is a bit of history, but what does this mean for all of us? Well, this is where the big scam of modern money comes into play. When a currency isn't backed by something valuable like gold, a government doesn't need to hold that valuable thing in order to make more money. Like I said before, if the US government wanted to create another $1 billion, they had to somehow get another $1 billion worth of gold first. But because they made it law that their money doesn't have to be guaranteed by anything, they can print as much money as they want whenever they need more. Every single time they print more money, your money becomes less valuable. And I have spoken about this on the channel quite a few times now, but right now with the amount of money that is being printed, your money is becoming about 15% less valuable every single year. And remember what happened to the Romans when their money became less and less valuable over time? Yeah, it ended them. But there's even more to this story of modern money devaluation than just printing lots of extra money. Even though the US dollar isn't backed 100% by gold anymore, the United States still has the largest gold reserves on the planet. And this gives people at least a little confidence in the power of the dollar, especially when it's still considered the reserve currency of the world. But here is the thing. The United States isn't even telling the truth about how much gold they have in storage. And this is how they are deceiving this truth. Let's say I want to get you to trust my financial skills, and I do this by telling you how much money I have saved. So I tell you I have $100, but I've twisted the truth a little bit to make my savings sound bigger than they really are. In reality, I only have $10 in my pocket. The rest of my money is loaned out to other people who are using that money however they want. And because I've loaned it out, there's a chance I may never get it back. So really, do I actually have $100? No. I only have $10. Well, this is basically the same lie the US Treasury is telling when they report how much gold they have. The Treasury says they have around 8,000 tons of gold in their possession, but really a big chunk of that gold is on loan to bullion banks who are using it for other purposes. So this sounds a little bit misleading, right? Well, it's a little bit more serious than this.
So they're accounting for what they actually have and what people owe them as the same thing. And that is basically illegal accounting. It's fraudulent.
If I told a similar lie to investors that wanted to invest in my company, this would be considered to be fraud. This would put me in jail, or at least I'd cop a significant fine. But what if the government does this? Well, they are telling us that it's okay. Before I go further, if you are finding this information really interesting and valuable and you think more people should know about it, please make sure that you share it around, like and comment. Lastly, there's a point that not only is money that we have in circulation today not backed by anything valuable, it seems that it's being controlled by people that don't seem to know what they're doing. Less than 2 years ago, the US national debt was $20 trillion. As I record this video, that number is over $30 trillion, the highest number in history. And that number is likely only going to get higher. But that's not just the USA that's heavily in debt. It's basically the case for the entire planet. Australia, Germany, Canada, Japan, Belgium, France, Italy, China, and the UK are all becoming more and more in debt with each passing day. So by holding on to any of our planet's major currencies, you're holding on to an asset that's rotting as fast as a bowl of old fruit. In reality, our money is worth less than nothing because it's tied to an immense amount of debt instead of anything of real value. The impact. Today, not a single currency on the planet is backed by anything real. Even worse, most governments are so heavily in debt, they are printing so much money that our money is becoming less valuable every minute that it's sitting in our accounts. Imagine it like this. For more than 3,000 years of human history, we've used something real as money, or we've guaranteed our money with something valuable, something like gold or silver. But for the last 50 years, we've all been taking part in a dangerous experiment. An experiment that's failed every single time it's been played out by our culture and history. An experiment that none of us are in control of. The difference for us is that for the first time ever, This experiment is happening on a global scale. At this point, I usually like to offer some sort of a solution to the problem at hand, and I definitely will continue to do this in future videos. But in this video, I really wanted to open up your eyes to how vastly different the monetary system is now compared to most of history, and to show you that there are some dodgy things that are happening within the systems right now, and unfortunately, this is just the tip of the iceberg. What I can leave you though with is that I think it's amazing you're watching these kind of videos and educating yourself about these things that are going on in the world with actual factual evidence supporting all this, whereas a lot of people are just burying their heads thinking that we're going to continue on and everything's going to return to normal. I think we're in for a big shift. We don't really know what that's going to look like yet, but there seems to be a shift of monetary financial systems coming. So let's strap ourselves in, shall we? If you did find this information valuable, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. This is really helpful for all of us. Also, that newsletter, that is banging, people love it. Link in bio for that. And we have an amazing private membership of individuals all learning the art of finance and freedom. So if you want to find out more, there is a link in the bio. And also, just going to give a shout out to BlockFi. If you have money sitting in your bank account right now, it is getting eaten up by interest rates quite drastically. So BlockFi is a great solution. You can get up to 8.25% of interest for your cash deposits. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.